Good morning, everyone. I would wish to thank our chairperson, Ms. Sharika Weaver, for handling today's proceedings thus far. I also wish to acknowledge at this time my colleague, Minister in the Cabinet, the Honorable Eugene Hamilton, Minister of Health, National Health Insurance, etc., Dr. James Hospitalis, the Director of the Caribbean Public Health Agency, and I also acknowledge the presence of our Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Hazel Laws, and the respective representatives who are here from the various media houses. Now, my little task has been made easier by the fact that Dr. Hospitalis has just put this entire press conference in context. And maybe some of the questions that you would have asked as representatives of media houses, you have already gotten answers to by virtue of the succinct yet comprehensive nature of what he just had to say. My comments as the Minister with responsibility for health are therefore along the vein of the significance of the theme for this conference and what it means for St. Kitts and Nevis on several different levels. The theme, as he would have noted, is sustainable health systems for economic growth, development, and wealth. A strange combination, but an important combination, because these three facets are not mutually exclusive, they're all interdependent. A country that does not have health is a country that can't have wealth. And by extension, there can be no economic growth without the various factors that go into the development of a country's economy and would safeguard its own economic competitiveness without the health and wellness of the human factor that drives production and competitiveness at the national, regional, and international levels. So the Ministry of Health is quite heartened that this is the ambitious, yet I think doable theme that we are trying to achieve as the various papers and research topics and discussions would unfold throughout the days of the conference in June. Now, why it is also important for us in the ministry to focus on the issue of health promotion within the context of building wealth is also because, as I said earlier, the human resource base is the key factor that determines at the end of the day what type of country we run. What type of member state do we consider ourselves to be within the sub-regional context of the OECS and the larger grouping of the CARICOM member states, and wider afield if you care to take it even to the level of the United Nations member states. And it is basically because regardless of the amount of investments that we attract, whether it's local investment or foreign direct investment, joint ventures between local business partners and foreign investors, and all of the concrete that we can put in place and all of the institutions that we can put down, everything cannot amount to a hill of beans without the human factor to power it. Because if we do not have the requisite skill sets, the aptitudes, the knowledge, the technical know-how, the vocational skill sets, even the academic know-how from those people who are so gifted and so blessed, then we basically are spinning top in mud. So I think the theme of the conference is meant to become a sobering reality on what it takes to transform economies, power countries, and create the kind of legacy and future that you would wish to leave in the hands of the other generations based on what we would have built in the time that we have now. I also look at this conference as an opportunity to explore matters such as health and wellness from the standpoint of business opportunities. What does it mean for us? I see this as an opportunity, therefore, for us to build on what we've already started in St. Kitts and Nevis going back many years in terms of transforming our economy out of an agrarian-based type of operation on the sugar production and other small crop cultivation to a services-driven economy that is obviously being led by tourism, the allied services, and other professional services. And to say that there is room for health and wellness businesses, and from the standpoint of what we have already, such as medical education, offshore education provided by the various universities that are here, as well as the opportunity for business engagements as it relates to wellness tourism. Some of our Caribbean neighbors have gone leaps ahead of us in terms of that. The country that comes to mind most would be St. Lucia in terms of what it has been able to do in the health and wellness sector. And therein lies some of the opportunity that we have to take St. Kitts and Nevis forward, and we are trusting that some of the topics, Dr. Hospitalis, that will emerge from the conference will zero in on some of these overarching ambitions and opportunities for economic growth. Now, from where I sit as a creature of the private sector, I would tell you that when I hear the word wealth being mentioned in a theme, I come from the school that says wealth creation comes from two things: education, and the other thing has to be the whole business of entrepreneurship. I believe that is how countries are supposed to build wealth. You build wealth by the people that power your sectors. You build wealth by the education and skills training that they have been provided with. And you build wealth when those individuals are empowered in a favorable environment to start businesses, expand businesses, create jobs, and by extension, create wealth. So I am also hoping that some of the conference topics will make that nexus in terms of what is required as a recipe for wealth creation. From where we sit is not about hoping that you win the lottery. It's not about having the luxury of a godfather well placed in certain places to basically give you the type of angel quiet investment so you could start a business and everything just drops in your lap. We are a Caribbean people who are accustomed to diversity, but at the same time, we have been known based on our track record to rise above that adversity and take opportunities when they present themselves. And it is the role of government, therefore, to provide the enabling environment for that type of wealth creation to take place via the policies, procedures, regulations, and legislation that would facilitate that type of growth. Now, the final note I would like to share has to do with the fact that for the rank and file of the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, CARPHA is not generally a household name. I think those of us who probably either grew up in the medical field or paid attention to what was happening to our country, especially post-independence, would recognize more easily the name CAREC, which happens to be one of the 5 predecessors that would have been responsible today for the merger into what we now know as CARPHA. And it is the presence of CAREC and the investment that CAREC would have made in St. Kitts and Nevis and other member states that would be responsible in large measure for what we can boast of in St. Kitts and Nevis and other member territories for that matter, in terms of giving us that 98% immunization coverage that we are now happy to have in St. Kitts and Nevis, where a lot of the regular post-World War II diseases and medical challenges that you would have had with things like triggers and stuff like that, ringworms, that type of stuff, these are things that are practically alien to our people. And a lot of our young people, especially those under the age of 15 and 20, might not even know what those things are. And a lot of that has to do with the inroads that we have been able to make as a country, and with the support of agencies such as CAREC, their successor CARPHA, PAHO, and the World Health Organization, to the point where we have successfully eliminated a number of diseases, including but not limited to smallpox. And it is our positive development in areas such as this that would have been responsible for the fact that even in the presence of international health scares that would be facilitated by international travel, that we have been able, in spite of those scares, Dr. Laws knows of one that we had quite recently that began in the UK, and were it not for the type of coverage that we had in St. Kitts and Nevis, we would have been in a state of national hysteria. Because these were cases that started in the UK, which UK's Port Health should have noticed among passengers who boarded a particular flight. And luckily we had the mechanism in place to deal with those things once these people would have arrived in Antigua and then here in the Federation, to the point where we did not even have to alarm the public based on the kind of coverage that we've had. I would think that in more recent history, Dr. Hospitalis, the relevance of CARPHA would have come home very strongly in terms of the amount of money, technical know-how, intellectual investment that would have gone into the responses to vector-borne illnesses such as chikungunya and also Zika within the last 3 years, because the work that CARPHA would have done in that respect would have been tremendous in terms of preventing what would have otherwise been a more wide-scale epidemic that would have had such deleterious consequences, not just for our workforce, but also families and vulnerable groups such as the elderly and children who may have all under been the age of 10. So we are also grateful for those types of legacies that we have had the opportunity to build with CARPHA in partnership. And in that token, we therefore look forward to the continued relationship that our country has already had with CARPHA as the premier public health agency in CARICOM that has the respect of its regional and international partners. And we also look forward as a Ministry of Health to continue the partnership in terms of seeing a successful outcome to the conference scheduled to take place in June. Thank you.
Stay up to date with news, programs, and activities of the government with SKNIS. Like us on Facebook. Listen to us on SoundCloud. Follow us on Twitter. And watch our videos on YouTube. Connect with us today. SKNIS, St. Kitts and Nevis Information Service.